in Uganda, who is going to take us through this bounty of the human language. Mr. Hamza Sekalima, you're most welcome, sir.
Alhamdulillah wa salatu wa salam ala rasulillahi sallallahu alayhi wasallam. We thank Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala that has given us the chance to be here once again to contemplate about the signs that He has put in this world. It is these signs that build our commitment to Him in terms of worship. Because Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala wants us to appreciate two things. Number one, that there is a creator, there is a supreme being that has control over us. That is one thing that you need to appreciate. That is the La ilaha illallah. Then once you are done with that, you go ahead and worship. Because indeed so many civilizations did appreciate that this environment we are in is not something that came out of the blue, but they stopped at that point, simply acknowledging. But for us as Muslims, we acknowledge, then we move ahead and worship Allah and follow His guidance, and that is what makes the difference between our religion and other forms of life. So that's why we come together, contemplate about the signs, especially the ones that are on us. You don't need to travel to some national park somewhere or into outer space. Just simply look at yourself.
Your body.
So today we are looking at the language, the human language. The human language is very interesting. We are the only creature, like our brother said, we are the only creature that is able to speak in the form of a complex structure that we call a language. Other creatures, like you said earlier, they simply use simple signals because their lives are not very complicated.
True.
They just want to communicate a few things. I like you. Go away.
I'm hungry.
I'm hungry. I'm feeling pain. And full stop, nothing else. There is no. Then the rest they could just demonstrate using their bodies, just body language, and they are done. Their lives are not complicated. But we human beings, Allah has given us two miracles. Number one, He has given us the language itself, the capacity to speak in a very complex, structured way, unlike the other creatures. We human beings, number one, have alphabets. So those alphabets are the single sounds, A, E, O, and the others. Then we combine individual letters to create what we call words. That alone is already complex enough. Then we go ahead and now combine words to create sentences that make meaning. So all those are complex structures that you only find within the human beings. The rest of the creatures, however large they may be, for example, the elephant has a very large brain. It is way bigger than ours in terms of quantity, but its language is still limited. It does not need a complex language like we human beings. So then, once He has created for us that structure called a language, He would have, if He desired, He would have given us all just one language. But He went ahead and gave us again another miracle. Thousands of languages, each one totally different from the other. I was one time talking to some students. We were at the Islamic University of Technology in Dhaka, Bangladesh. So they were coming from Cameroon. They were saying in Cameroon, there are 3,000 languages. You imagine, just one country, one small country in Central Africa, 3,000 languages. And with each group talking at different things. Here in Uganda, we have largely 52 for each of the tribes.
But really that is quite a big number.
And each of those groups, they speak different sounds. But the interesting thing is that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has again structured the languages to resemble in terms of the way they are built. For example, if I'm speaking English, the way I speak may vary just in terms of arrangement of words in a sentence. Otherwise, the core mechanism of building the language remains the same.
Yes.
I want food. Njagala mere.
Ana urid ta'am.
Urid ta'am. So you can see that even if the languages themselves are changing in terms of sounds, the core structures are different. There are some languages where they talk in military style. I think it is the Chinese. They don't start with, they don't say I want, then food. For them, they emphasize what is needed, then they bring what you want with it. So meaning, you say food, I want. Not I want food, because the most important thing is the food itself. And even in the military language, you can see when they are giving commands to the soldiers, they emphasize the action. You want to command a soldier to put his gun on the shoulder. You don't say, Tia, Sila, Begani. In that case, the person may not even hear what you are saying. Yes. So they say, Sila, Begani, Weka. So three words, and everyone will hear, and it is clear. Allah. So you don't say, Weka, Sila, Begani. Many things are Sila. Begani. He knows very well that that's the gun. Begani, Weka. So they are able to communicate. So that's how interesting Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has given us this very interesting miracle of language. And there are verses that talk about this as a miracle. In Surah Ar-Rahman, Rahman is the 55th chapter within the Quran, and the verses 3 and 4, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is telling us, Ar-Rahman. He begins by mentioning that very important attribute of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Allama al-Quran. He has taught us the Quran. Khalaqal insan, created the human being. Allamahul bayan. Now that sifat of bayan is specific for human beings, meaning we speak in an all eloquent way that can allow another person to understand. This program, we are doing it today, we are using a lot of words. By the time the 1 hour elapses, we shall have spoken a high volume of words, and we are only explaining the miracle of language. So that is how far Allah has created us. So Allamahul bayan, He has taught us the capacity to eloquently express ourselves in multiple languages, multiple words. Even the same thing, you can say it by interchanging words. And even for the same thing, we do have multiple words to represent the same thing. That is how interesting Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has created for us the languages. So that is the first thing. Then He has also given us very many languages. And that one, He calls it a sign. وَمِنْ آيَاتِهِ, that is Surah Rum. Surah Rum is the 30th chapter, and the verse is 22. وَمِنْ آيَاتِهِ خَلْقُ السَّمَاوَاتِ وَالْأَرْضِ. He begins by talking about the heavens and the earth. وَاخْتِلَافِ أَلْسِنَتِكُمْ وَأَلْوَانِكُمْ, and the differences in your skin colors. Alsinatukum, in your tongues, meaning the languages that you speak. Wa alwanikum, and the colors of your skin. And He says, Inna fi dhalika la ayatin lil alimin. People that really have knowledge are the ones that can just look at the way a Chinese man speaks, the Ugandan is here speaking, the Japanese is speaking. Just imagine even societies that are near to one another, you find they are speaking different languages. For example, the way the Japanese speak is not the way the Chinese speak. Yet they even resemble in appearance, they are even located in the same place, but still Allah has varied their languages. And in a radical way, in that if you don't live with the Japanese to know what they mean, you will not know it just because you are Chinese. That is how far Allah is calling it wa min ayatihi, among His signs. So that is something very interesting. So in our discussion today, therefore, we are going to be looking at some very special things that allow us to build this capacity to speak. Because we know very well that we human beings, we don't learn our languages, especially our mother tongues. We don't learn them from class. Otherwise, it would be very interesting, meaning you produce a child, but for the child to learn what you are saying, has to go to school first. No. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has made the human being that starts young with zero language to have the capacity to learn that language in a very short time without anyone really instructing the child.
True.
And interestingly, children learn the language that is used in that place where they are.
Yes.
For example, if you are a Muganda and you keep using English at home, that small child will learn English as the first language. They will not learn Luganda as the primary language. And interestingly, that becomes now the mother tongue of that child. So the mother tongue is not necessarily the language of your family members. So it is that language that you start with, and from that point onwards, you'll continue to develop with that language as your mother tongue. Now, you see, for example, I was raised initially in an environment where we would speak English. So when I'm thinking, you know, human beings think in their mother tongue. When I'm thinking, I think in English. Although I know Luganda very well, and
but to internalize something properly,
but whenever I go into thinking, I begin to speak to myself in English. The reason simply being that was the language that first imprinted itself into my language structure, so the brain now thinks in that language. There are people who claim that you can't really build good intelligence by when you distort the child's development by making them learn a language that is not their primary language. It only becomes a problem in case the home is using very many languages at the same time. In that case, I think the brain finds it hard to build one structured language. Otherwise, if the language is uniform, even if it is a foreign language, the child will capture that, then begin to add on later. So, number one, we human beings are already built with the capacity to speak as a special creature. And Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala does not create things for fun. We need this capacity to speak. That's why he gave it to us. The other creatures don't need it. So don't think that Allah could not make monkeys or cows to sit down and do a lot of conversation. They don't need it. We are here for an examination, and that examination requires us to be able to speak. And because the other creatures are not doing that examination, they don't need all these advanced features. Otherwise, Allah can make anything speak. Okay. We know very well that in the Akhirah, when the person is undergoing evaluation, they will deny whatever sins they have committed.
But their body parts will...
Until they will insist that you are all lying. They will even belie Allah. The human being will belie the angels who have been writing about him. Then he will demand that he wants his own body to do the testimony.
Yes.
Then Allah will inspire these limbs, and they will begin to talk on their own. So the human being already has a biological capacity to acquire language. So that is one thing that we already have, that is inbuilt, meaning even if the human being is born in a forest, they already have that feature. They may not learn a language of human beings because in the forest they are not seeing any human beings. They may learn the language of those animals that are there. But once you pick that person and put him among the human beings, he immediately picks and starts learning the language from there. Then we also have a special structure within our brain. So there are two areas. One is called the Broca's area, which is responsible for speech production and grammar, arranging those words properly. Then we have the Winnick's area, which is responsible for comprehension. Because you see, when the other person speaks, now for you, you need to pick those sounds and internalize, reverse engineer them into what is he talking about. Yes. So you could be able to speak, but you are unable to understand what others. But Allah has built these two areas within our abilities, in that you can hear and you can understand. Interestingly, these areas are so advanced in their functionalities in that we can run approximations of languages. For example, if you went to a place like Mbale or to Busoga, you are Muganda, you've never heard of them speaking Lusoga. But once you reach there and you begin to just listen carefully, they may not be speaking Luganda words, but the way they are talking, you can begin to now relate what you already know with what they are saying, and you are able to understand that I think is meaning this and that.
True.
That is how interesting Allah has built this. Then the human larynx, which is positioned in the lower throat, allows us to produce a wide range of sounds, because you see, this entire speech business is about producing sounds.
Yes.
Other creatures have very low sound production capacity. Interestingly, for parrots, you know that parrots can imitate human speech. But for them, they simply repeat what you are saying. They don't really understand, but they have an advanced capacity to replicate the sound. Meaning, if you tell it, jangu wano, it can return that sound back to you, but not that it has understood that you mean come here, but it simply repeats the sound. So meaning in terms of vocals, the parrot has very advanced vocals. They are nearly the same as that of the human being. And I think that is itself a miracle, because if Allah gave it those vocals, but they don't use it for communicating among themselves, then it means you human being, you have the vocals, but you also use them. Yet Allah has created a creature that has the capacity of vocals, but they are still not using them in terms of communication. So that larynx that you have within your throat, it is also adapted to be able to produce a wide range of sounds. And here maybe our languages are not complicated. You'll find languages that have very complex alphabets.
True.
But the human beings are still able to learn those languages from the early childhood, develop them into structures, and continue to grow as it requires. Now, so how does the human being, this other miracle of learning languages, how do we human beings actually learn these languages that we find in the world? And how do we even know that we need to learn them? You realize that the child does not learn the barking of the dogs which are there.
Yes.
Although it sees them barking, because if it was about just merely imitating sounds, the child would bark like a dog, it would make the sound of chicken, so it would be a confused mess of sounds. But it ignores the other sounds being made by other creatures, and it concentrates on these sounds being produced by its fellow human beings. How? Because the child is not really reasoning in an advanced way, but all those controls, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has put them in place. So a newborn child is able to distinguish, meaning to separate out, between 800 and above distinct units of sound, meaning the child can distinguish up to 800 sound elements, because those ones will be needed to form a language. Meaning at the time it is born, already this structure is there. It is able to distinguish up to 800 what we call phonemes, distinct units of sound that we have in our languages. So within the first year, we begin to prune, we begin to structure these sounds that we are hearing into what we call a language.
Allah Akbar. Thank you very much, Mr. Hamza Sekalema. Our dear viewer of Salam TV, this is the Alhidaayah show, as we earlier informed you, where we appreciate Islam and science. And today, we are appreciating the human language. Or how are we able to communicate between amongst ourselves? And the speciality in it is that all other animals cannot do this. We've appreciated the 3rd and 4th verse in Surah Ar-Rahman, where Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala talks or tells us, informs us about the eloquence, this very language that we are looking at. We've looked at Surah Ar-Rum, the 22nd verse. So we're going to go for a short break, and after that we are going to come back and continue from how a child specifies or understands and learns the human language, not all these other creatures or animals that are surrounding him. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.
Salam TV. Don't miss out on being part of the ultimate game changer. Omumaniwa Salam TV is expanding nationwide, bringing life-changing prizes to all Ugandans. Everyone can win, including cars, Haji and Umrah pilgrimages, land titles, hard cash, home furniture, TV sets, and many others. Partner with us in this noble cause and let's transform lives together. Don't miss out. Call or WhatsApp 0776 988 064 or 0702 988 064 for more information. Get ready to win from June 10th, 2025 to February 14th, 2026.
In the midst of grief, war begins to whisper. Some battles are personal.
Where reason ends, force begins.
You ask, We delivered.
You need to make Damali pay for everything that she's done.
Watch 5 days of drama, 5 days of Damalai, Mondays to Fridays at 8:30 p.m. on Pal Magic Prime when you subscribe to Kawiki.
I'm one of the scientists now doing research on plastic technology recycling, where we can be able to produce other products from plastic waste. For example, we are trying to develop a plastic tile with sand plastic tile, that it is unbreakable, it can be shifted from one roof to another. So this is a project we are working on. It's our initiative as Kazire Group of trying to reduce waste from the environment. Brothers and sisters, Taso Butonde for a better Uganda.
This message is brought to you by National Environment Management Authority, Kampala Capital City Authority, Vivo Energy, Airco, Pepsi, Stanbic Bank and NBS TV. Better steady, be better.
Sometimes I've been affected by those who send me money, by those who tell me send money on this number. If you don't send, we are going to switch you off. Recently, there is a man who keeps calling me from West Nile. He keeps sending money on my number. And thereafter, he says, you send back my money. Yet when you are sending money, the name of the person you are sending it to, this guy, I hope he's watching. This is like the 4th time. I have sent my money on your number by accident. Please, can you send it back? He said, is he security? So you need to be very careful, follow the process, and then master them. Let them not be in a hurry, and then be extra careful. Better steady, be better.
In partnership with Uganda Communications Commission and NBS.
Okulinyisa omutindo gwa Afromobile. Eno yengeri joyinza okuzza obujja omutindo gwa Afromobile yo. Funa app ya Afromobile okuva ku mukutu gwa Google Store oba App Store oba ku mutimbagano gwa www.afromobile.com. Londako forgotten password. Tekamu account yo eya Afromobile ozebujja pin code yo. Ojja kufuna obubaka ku email yo okuli ne code empya. Bw'oteekamu code eyo olwo pin yo empya ekkirizibwe. Afromobile, emboozi za Africa ezannamaddala.
The Electoral Commission informs the public that nominations for the 2026 general elections will take place as follows. Presidential candidates 23rd to 24th of September 2025 at Lubowa Reza. Members of Parliament from 15th to the 16th October 2025 at the gazetted district/city nomination centers. Local government 3rd to the 24th of September 2025 at gazetted district and sub-county nomination centers. All aspiring candidates are reminded to carefully follow the official guidelines. Nomination forms and details are available at district, city offices or on www.ec.or.ug.
Eno ye Salam TV.
Our dear viewers, from that short break, this is the Alhidaayah show every Monday 3 p.m. to 4 p.m. When you miss this interesting show, you can visit the Salam TV YouTube channel and you watch. These shows are always there. This is today we are appreciating the miracles of the human body, but more specifically the human language. And by the time we ended our first session, we had looked at how a child differentiates, or why a child understands, or a baby understands and does not take in these other languages or sounds from the animals. We would think that the fact that he is surrounded by dogs, chicken, and all these other animals, the goats, why is it that they are not learned by this baby? This is what we are appreciating. In studio, I'm Alka Mayanja, your host, as always, and Mr. Hamza Sekalema, a lecturer at Islamic University in Uganda. Mr. Hamza Sekalema, you were telling us about this, how this baby understands and only picks the human language from the environment.
Now, the issue of learning languages is itself a miracle, because Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala allows this child to even build a structure. Up to now, I've never really found how the child is able to actually construct like differences in terms of the essence of words.
No.
A child will realize that this sound here is actually a name of a person.
Yes.
Then it also knows that this particular sound is a command. But how does the child actually discern that difference? It is something that has to this day puzzled me. I've never been able to figure out, how does the child know that these are names of objects? This is a cow, this is a TV. Then when you tell it, come, go, the child now knows that those ones are not names of objects. Those ones are now commands to do actions.
Allah Akbar Kabir.
And it differentiates them very well and assigns the names to the individuals. And how does it even know that human beings actually have names? Because you will find, how does it know that now each of these human beings needs a special sound that if I say it, I'm now calling this person.
Allah.
So this is all structure. So when Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is building our capacity to speak, between the first 2 to 6 months, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala builds the child's capacity by simply allowing it to produce a single sound but multiple times. For example, the child can say ba ba ba. So meaning all it needs is just to repeat the ba ba multiple times, or mama. And interestingly, in all languages, you will find that the name of the mother and father, they are very simple words.
Yes.
In Luganda, tata. Very simple. You don't need a lot of intelligence. Mama.
Then Arabic.
Interestingly, in Arabic, they don't call the mothers ummi like the official Arabic which we find in the books.
Yes.
They sometimes call them ma, and the fathers, they call them baba sometimes. So it is not the highly linguistic one which is recorded is not what is spoken actually within the day-to-day. So the child begins by building capacity to simply utter a sound and repeat it to generate some simple word. And in that case, luckily enough, the words that refer to the parents, they are very simple and they require just that level of development. Meaning within the first 2 to 6 months, the child is already able to speak the sounds that refer to the 2 very important family members. But you'll also wonder, how does the child actually know that this one, the female one, is the mom, then this male one is the father?
Allah Akbar.
How does it even know that those relationships exist, that they need to be Allah. Fatabarakallah ahsanul khaliqin. Then later the child now begins to produce some words, and interestingly they are saying that before the child produces the names of things, it begins by learning how to point as a way of indicating focus. So the child will learn and begin to point, I want that, meaning it does not know the name of that very sweet food,
it has attracted
but it knows that if you want that thing to come to you, you point
at it, and then it will.
So in the end, it becomes, so therefore the children already have an internal structure that tells them that these sounds, the purpose is to communicate. That's why they now use both their body and the sound. Otherwise, if they didn't know that there's a need for communication, there's no way they would have started to do things like pointing for names that they have not actually learned. So they now join the gestures to begin that. Then between 1 and 2 years, the children now begin to construct more complex sounds and to also attach names to objects. This is milk, this is my mother, this is a chair. So the child now begins to know that these things which I'm seeing, each of them has a certain sound which is used to refer to it.
Yes.
And all this the child is learning without need for any class.
Allah Akbar Kabir.
And wallahi, for some societies, like for example the Japanese, they don't waste the early period of the child pumping them with a lot of this academic content that we do a lot here in Africa, because the human being does not need all that academic content. That small child who is in the home, he's learning thousands of things without need for official class and a book and writing many things. So for them, actually, well into 10 years, they focus on building a good human being. And a good human being is not built out of theoretical concepts and a lot of knowledge in the head, no. It comes out of imitation of good things. Just like the way we learn language. We learn language by imitating what we hear and repeating it. That's why we here in Uganda, our accents are affected by the teachers that teach us.
True.
If you are taught by people with bad accent, that's what your brain will build, and you end up speaking your English in a way that is not necessarily very good. But largely the Ugandans speak very good English. Our languages don't interfere too much, and we would have actually utilized that as a talent to do a lot of things globally. But possibly we do lack in some areas. So the child now has grown to the level of internally understanding that the objects I'm seeing, each one has a name. That is 1 to 2 years. Then, there later, the child now begins to very rapidly build connections between words in order to make communication.
Through sentences.
So it now constructs sentences. This is an egg. This is a boy. But you realize that the child may be making grammatical mistakes, but you don't worry about those grammatical mistakes. Because again, here in Uganda, there is that radical obsession with grammar.
Yeah, true.
Extreme obsession with the grammar, where a person makes a small grammatical mistakes and the entire society is so affected by that. For us who had our education in Asia, that grammar business is not there, especially for English. The person just speaks whatever, for as long as you've understood. There's no such a thing as worrying about grammar. But here in Uganda, people even reach the level of avoiding to speak just
in fear
because
of
the
mistakes.
obsession of the society with the grammar. So the child is now building the words slowly, and it's creating a sentence. Then the child, when it clocks around 18 years, the child now begins to speak more words at a given moment. This younger one just speaks 1, 2 sounds, and that's all for the day. But as it begins to grow, it masters and knows that whatever sound you hear these human beings generating, it is important. You memorize it, learn what it means. And all of this, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has created it, and it works automatically. And interestingly, we don't have very many people that have failed to learn the language. You would find, in case it was considering the complexity of language,
yes,
and the way we learn it, you'll find that basically everyone, including the ones that are deemed as not very intelligent, they are still able to learn.
Yeah, true.
You know the interesting story about, I think it was Thomas Edison, the guy that invented the light bulb. Now that guy went to school, and he was extremely brilliant. For him, he was years ahead of the class. You imagine like a P1 child that is able to solve even near the secondary school level mathematics. So that child would be bored by that content which is at that point. So later, the school decided to dismiss him. They wrote a letter to him, to the mother.
To the parent.
They wrote saying this child is retarded and is unable to study, so we shall not be able to teach him. Teach him by yourself, they told the mother to. So when the child didn't read the letter, just brought to the mother and gave. So when the mother picked the letter, she read the opposite to the boy. So the mother told him, they are saying you are too brilliant to be in that school, and they don't have any way of teaching you, so I will teach you myself.
Allah.
Then the mother self-taught this young man, and he became that genius that we know very well that came up with the light bulb.
Allah.
But you can see therefore that a society can deem you to be
ignorant,
non-intelligent. And in that case, therefore, if we were to subject language learning to these academic preconceptions that we have, would possibly deny some people a chance to learn language. But you see that every child finally grasps whatever language, and the language you learn is the language that is in the place where you are. Yeah. So here in Uganda, we blow out of proportion the issue of children that are able to speak English. You find that the parents are very proud, even if they are willing to spend millions for the child to learn English. This is just a language. If you have ever gone to countries that are very advanced like China and people don't even know that English, you'll appreciate that this is just a simple language, and Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has given us these languages. And He has made it a miracle that we differ in languages.
And ethnicity.
Okay. So, child is combining the words. And is creating very clear sentences. Then the child again now goes on to the next level of grammar, because the sounds are there, yes, but the words keep changing depending on whether you are talking of now or yesterday, but you'll find that grammar, the child does not actually still need any official classes. Just a few corrections from the people that are around the child, and the child will know that when I'm saying I went, I say nagenze. If I'm talking ngenda, so it knows how to structure that language, and the same thing applies to the English language and the others. So these ones are all elements of the miracle that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has put within us. He gave us that complex way of communication. Other creatures also have special ways of communication, and they are indeed also ingenious. For example, if you look at whales, whales can communicate over extremely large distances, kilometers and kilometers. One makes a sound here, the sound travels through the water, and another one hears it maybe like 20, 40 miles away. Then the other one, after hearing it, it imitates exactly the same sound that it has heard from another, and they move forward. There was one observation that was made about whales communicating over the ocean, and covering thousands of kilometers with each relay involving a repetition of the sound. So for them, they have that capacity of being able to hear from an extremely long distance, but the language is still not as complex as that of the human being. And the human being, the language of the human being is a miracle in that it is complex in two ways. Individually, each language is complex, it has those structures, and again, there are thousands of languages. And Allah has given all that to us, and He even says it is among His signs, ayatihi. So when you are speaking here and you hear the artist speaking and there is the man from Guru, you should not just look at it as an automatic thing. These are miracles that don't exist in other creatures. Even if you live with other creatures, they can never be able to learn your language. Interestingly, for other creatures like dogs, what they learn is the meanings. For example, you can talk to a dog. These are highly trained police dogs and the others. They understand a large variety of human words, but they cannot speak back. So, but you can see that they require advanced training to be able to communicate and give them really detailed instructions. There are some highly trained police dogs that can even do investigation. It sees a person committing a crime, it does not bark immediately, allows the person to complete whatever they are doing. It even follows the person. So these are advanced learning methods for some of these creatures. But for the languages, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has given us that unique ability. There is another level where Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has put into the language of human beings. We human beings make jokes. The other creatures don't make jokes. For example,
you say something, but you don't actually mean that.
And it's moreover, your fellow human beings can know that now this one this is a joke. Which is not in other creatures. So a dog can't joke with a fellow dog. Things are always serious. But for us, we even have comedians. A person whose life is about joking.
You
just imagine
there for a whole hour, and
the whole hour the person is just producing things that are funny, but they are not to be taken serious. That is another interesting level that Allah has put. Then we also have what we call riddles, which we call engero in Luganda, and the Baganda have very many of these riddles. A riddle is a challenge that requires intelligent decoding in order for you to know what they mean. The Ngeros, the Bagada have the Ngeros which are more of proverbs. For example, what proverb can we cite?
Linda Chigweyo.
So Linda Chigweyo, they stop it there, then they allow you to complete Afumita Chi Mochila. Meaning, when they say Linda Chigweyo, Afumita Mochila, they don't actually mean that
the animal.
It is not reference to hunting. It is reference to the action of unnecessarily waiting without taking action up to a time when it is too late. And by the time you take action, because they are telling you, meaning yes, you have not missed,
but you get less.
Whatever you are acting upon is of no significance. So imagine, meaning we are even able to write an encoded way of expressing what would require a very big explanation. Because that sentence is just one. Linda Chigweyo, Afumita Mochila. Full stop. But it has a whole lesson that you can derive out of it. And that is another level of language where we do have capacity to encode in proverbs. But the proverbs alone, we do have now even riddles. A riddle is a complex problem that requires you to roll back. A person gives you, we used to have those riddles, Smanye, Ndimosaja, Atera, Ndimokazi. So you have to now think of what is that thing which is also a female and also a male. So all these are more advanced applications of human language. Apart from these basic sounds that we use to communicate, we can encode the language in such a way that we are not even able to be understood. Look, for example, at the language that the youth use today. If you sat in their circles, for example, if you went to a ghetto and sat with those ghetto boys, they are talking what for them they regard as Luganda.
Yes.
But the way they have mixed up the entire thing, you can't even understand unless you have been with them and you've learned that Chido means the 500. Manual Wasa means 1,000. But you find for them, some I don't think they even remember the original words. They now know very well that Chido Wasa, these are the words that they use. And it means human beings are even able to extend a language beyond what they've learned initially. They can extend it and create their own totally new lexicon. That is the other very interesting thing about languages. So for you who is there, please appreciate that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has created a very special thing for human beings, the capacity to speak, the capacity to explain. Just imagine all the content, the knowledge content that we have in this world. It is all driven by language and the ability of human beings to explain and to even go ahead and do the writing. Possibly we shall look at capacity to write as another level of human development, because the human beings didn't start with the writing.
True.
There are even some languages that are not yet really written, but they do communicate. So we ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to give us an understanding of some of these miracles that He has put within us, so that we are able to appreciate that every small thing that you see on yourself is a miracle, and it requires contemplation so that you can appreciate the power of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala.
Thank you very much, Mr. Hamza Sekalema, for that today. This is the Alhidaayah show, our dear viewer, where we appreciate Islam and science. And more specifically today, we have appreciated miracles of the human body, but more specifically the human language, that intellect. Why I, Alka Mayanja, can speak to you and you understand, and why the dog cannot speak to you, and why do sometimes I frown my face, sometimes I'm smiling. That difference, we've appreciated it, and indeed it is a miracle from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. We've looked at Surah Al-Rahman, Surah Al-Rum, Surah Al-Rahman, the 3rd and 4th verse. You can go and expound more about the eloquence of a human being. We've looked at Surah Al-Rum, the 22nd verse, and all this we are trying to show to you, our dear viewer, that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala created us as human beings in the best form of nature. This is the Alhidaayah show every Monday, 3 p.m. to 4 p.m., where we appreciate Islam and science. We cannot end the show without reminding you, our dear viewers, that Sunday, Monday, and Tuesday, that will be 13th, 14th, and 15th of Rabi Ithan, and those will be the white days or Ayyam al-Bid. Please and please make intention and fast these white days. We are not going to proceed from here. We meet next time bi'idhnihi tabaraka wa ta'ala. I remain Alkam Mayanja, the host for this show. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.